On an otherwise unremarkable Tuesday afternoon in Omaha, Nebraska, sisters Hannah and Claire were making their typical walk home from Central High School. The city, characterized by its unique blend of urban buzz and Midwestern tranquility, was humming with the rhythm of everyday life. At 15, Hannah was the younger of the two. She was introspective and brimming with curiosity, her dark hair frequently bouncing in a ponytail as she moved with a youthful zest. Her keen eyes, ever observant, were always seeking, absorbing, and reflecting on the world around her. Claire, age 17, was a study in contrasts. She carried a maturity that was slightly unsettling in a teenager, and yet there was a vulnerability about her that could not be ignored. With her long, untamed hair and perceptive gaze, Claire exuded an almost mystical aura. Where Hannah's curiosity was bright and eager, Claire's was cool and measured, giving her a serene wisdom. The sisters chatted animatedly, their conversation a mix of school updates, friends, family, and the latest trends. It was a world cocooned in the comforts of adolescence, oblivious to the realities lurking just beyond their perception. Their journey home took them down the vibrant Dodge Street, a lively thoroughfare buzzing with local shops, eateries, and the typical urban miscellanea. But that day, as they neared 16th Street, a peculiar sight caught their attention. An old man huddled by the roadside, his appearance shabby and his body frail. His eyes, wide and filled with an inexplicable fear, darted nervously around as he tried to conceal something within his shaking hands. Intrigued by the man's strange behavior, Hannah and Claire approached him. Their casual chatter faded, replaced by a palpable tension as they neared the man. Hannah, her brows furrowed in worry, asked in a small voice, "Sir, are you okay?" The man's reaction was instant and alarming. He startled, his eyes darting frantically as he shuffled further into the alley, cradling whatever he held even closer. That Tuesday afternoon, the normal world for Hannah and Claire shattered, giving way to the unfamiliar, the strange, and the absolutely terrifying. The afternoon's warmth gave way to a chilling unease as Hannah's question hung heavy in the alley off 16th Street. The old man seemed overtaken by fear. His face, etched with deep lines of age, grew pale. His eyes bulged, fixated on something hidden in his grasp. As he began convulsing, Claire caught sight of a strange symbol on a small metallic amulet he had been desperately trying to hide. She couldn't look away, her gaze inexplicably drawn to the intricate design. "Sir, what is—" Claire started, pointing towards the amulet. But her words were abruptly cut short as the man let out a chilling gasp, his body jerking violently before collapsing onto the cold, unforgiving ground. The amulet slipped from his lifeless fingers, landing within Claire's reach. The symbol, now hauntingly still, was the silent harbinger of the old man's gruesome end. "Look at this, Hannah," Claire began, her eyes locked onto the symbol. She extended a trembling hand to pick up the amulet. But before she could finish her sentence, the old man's convulsions abruptly ceased. He lay eerily still, a chilling finality marking his death. Claire dialed 911 in a daze, the phone shaking in her hand. The paramedics arrived soon, but all their efforts couldn't breathe life back into the old man. They guessed it was a heart attack and advised the girls to head home. On their walk back, the sisters were silent. The day's events weighed heavily on their minds. Claire clutched the amulet in her pocket, the cool imprint of it searing through her jeans. Its presence was oppressive, its silent call relentless. Back at home, the girls sought solace in routine. They cooked dinner together, their actions mechanical, their conversations sparse. Over a meal of spaghetti and meatballs, they revisited the day's horrific events. Claire retrieved the amulet, unveiling the symbol once more. "Can you see it, Hannah?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Hannah looked at the amulet, then at her sister. "See what, Claire? It's blank." Her words hung in the air, further amplifying the mystery surrounding the symbol. The girls decided to keep the day's events from their parents. The rest of the evening was quiet, tension seeping into every corner of the house. Their dreams were haunted by the old man's death and the mysterious symbol, an ominous reminder of the horrors to come. The night was piercingly cold, an ominous chill that seemed to seep into Claire's bones. Sleep evaded her, held at bay by the haunting image of the old man's death. The amulet with the symbol, safely tucked inside her desk drawer, seemed to radiate a menacing, icy energy that filled her room with an unnerving sense of dread. Without warning, a bone-chilling gust of wind swept through her room. The curtains billowed violently, and the lights flickered, casting grotesque shadows that danced manically on the walls. Heart pounding, Claire sat upright, every nerve in her body screaming danger. Out of the spectral gloom, a figure began to form. Impossibly tall and inhumanly slender, its spindly limbs extended into sharp, claw-like appendages. It was a creature birthed from nightmares, its demonic form shrouded in an aura of darkness, its face concealed but for two malevolent, glowing red eyes. "Claire," the figure hissed, its voice the echo of forgotten tombs and chilling crypts. "I am McCool." The name hung in the air, a chilling promise of doom. McCool was no guardian. He was a tormentor, a spectral figure woven from the very fabric of darkness, linked inexplicably to the symbol. He was the embodiment of fear, his mere existence meant to push her to the brink of madness, to make her stumble and reveal the symbol, which would lead to her destruction. "The symbol you carry," McCool's voice slithered into her mind, "is no ordinary trinket. Its power cannot be taken lightly. Its secrets must not be revealed to the unchosen. The symbol cannot be destroyed. It must always be near you, for straying from it will cause you pain and weakness. You, Claire, are marked by this symbol. If it is exposed, it would mean your end." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in before adding, "Initially the symbol was veiled to others. It was invisible to those not chosen. However, now that I have made my appearance, everyone can see it." Stunned into silence, Claire could only stare at the apparition, her mind a vortex of fear and confusion. This was no fairy tale. This was her life. The burden of the symbol, the threat of McCool, they were all horribly, terrifyingly real. As the shadowy form of McCool dissolved back into the darkness, Claire, trembling with raw fear, sought comfort from her parents. She babbled about the symbol, the old man's death, and now the terrifying encounter with McCool. But her parents dismissed her panicked words as night terrors, the fallout of the day's harrowing events. Back in her room, alone and afraid, Claire looked at the amulet. Silent yet foreboding, it lay on her desk, a stark reminder of the chilling reality she was now a part of. She traced the symbol, its cool, otherworldly energy pulsating beneath her fingers. It was as real as the fear gnawing at her insides. Dawn arrived with a burst of golden light, but Claire found no comfort in its warmth. Her mind was a tumultuous storm of questions. How could she protect the symbol without revealing it? What if someone accidentally discovered it? But most of all, why her? Why had this curse chosen her? The sun's rays broke through the somber gloom of the morning, its promise of a new day falling on deaf ears. The world, which once held an innocent charm for Claire, now echoed with a haunting dread. Her life, her reality, had been irrevocably warped by the symbol and the relentless terror of McCool. Each day was a precarious balancing act. Claire had devised a cunning strategy to keep the symbol concealed, yet nearby. She fashioned it into an amulet, a seemingly ordinary trinket, and wore it around her neck. To the world, it was just an eccentric piece of jewelry, but the icy weight against her skin was a constant reminder of the ominous burden she carried. Every shadow, every rustle, was a grim reminder of McCool's terrifying presence. She could feel his malicious eyes on her, even in the light of day, his spectral figure a perpetual source of fear. He was omnipresent, his voice a dreadful whisper in her mind that robbed her of sleep and peace. Her nights were steeped in terror. Every creak of the house, every gust of wind was a nightmarish echo of McCool's voice. The safety of sleep was denied to her, replaced with horrifying nightmares filled with his menacing laughter and warnings of impending doom. Every night was a battle against fear, every waking moment a struggle to maintain an illusion of normalcy. Despite her best attempts, the strain began to show. Her eyes, once vibrant, were now shadowed with a fatigue that went beyond physical exhaustion. Her laughter, once warm and spontaneous, had turned hollow. The toll of her secret was eroding her spirit, the constant fear chipping away at her sanity. In her desperation, Claire found herself confiding in Hannah. Her sister, initially startled, was drawn into the chilling narrative of the symbol and the ominous figure of McCool. Claire unveiled the amulet, keeping the symbol hidden, and explained the dread rules that bound her to it. The fear in Claire's eyes, the visible distress, couldn't be dismissed as a figment of imagination. Hannah, despite her inability to see the symbol, couldn't ignore the dramatic transformation in her sister. The once vibrant Claire was now a mere shadow of her former self, her essence being devoured by an unseen terror. Hannah became a beacon of hope amidst the tempest that had become Claire's life. She listened, comforted, and did her best to understand. She suggested reaching out to experts, paranormal investigators, spiritual healers, anyone who could offer some insight or assistance. But Claire was hesitant, knowing that any exposure might spell catastrophe. Claire's life had become a dangerous dance on the razor's edge. She was living with an entity whose power and malevolence were beyond her comprehension. Every day was a struggle against the darkness, each moment an act of defiance against the entity that sought to push her into insanity and despair. As McCool's torment intensified, so did Claire's desperation. She had been thrust into a realm of terror, her every waking moment haunted by the fear of being exposed. Her life was no longer her own. It had become a twisted, nightmarish existence that held no respite. Yet she clung on to hope. She wasn't entirely alone. She had Hannah, and together they had to navigate through this labyrinth of dread. The nightmare had to end someday. It had to. The first rays of dawn brought no comfort, only the promise of another day cloaked in fear and uncertainty. But she had to keep going, keep fighting, because that's what she was now, a fighter, battling an enemy that existed beyond the realm of understanding. The bond of sisterhood was strong between Claire and Hannah, but the incredulity that shrouded their current predicament was an unexpected strain. While Hannah wished to help her sister, the absurdity of the situation often left her skeptical. Claire's tormented accounts of McCool, the constant fear of exposure, and the chilling details of the symbol were daunting for the younger sibling. It seemed more the stuff of horror movies and fiction than the life of a high school girl in Omaha. Hannah found herself torn between her innate trust in Claire and the rational logic that resisted such supernatural claims. This skepticism was painfully apparent to Claire. The more she felt Hannah pull away, the more her desperation deepened. With each passing day, her reality seemed to spiral further into a nightmarish abyss, the terror of McCool's presence and the fear of revealing the symbol escalating to unbearable heights. The once lively teenager was a fading shadow, her spirit withering under the relentless fear. Her smiles were fleeting, her laughter rare. Sleep was an elusive solace, her dreams haunted by McCool's voice and the dread of the symbol's exposure. In the silent desperation of one particularly chilling night, Claire failed to keep the symbol hidden. In her haste to fight off an encroaching panic attack, she forgot to shield the amulet from Hannah's view. Her sister, who had come to offer comfort in Claire's moment of distress, caught sight of the symbol. Hannah stood frozen, her gaze locked onto the amulet. "What? What is this, Claire?" she whispered, her voice barely audible over the deafening throb of Claire's heart. In the icy silence that followed, Claire felt the heavy mantle of fear settle on her shoulders. Her worst fear had materialized. The symbol, once hidden in its secret veil, was now starkly visible to Hannah. It was a damning revelation, a catastrophe Claire had desperately tried to avoid. The realization was a crushing blow, more agonizing than any physical wound. The symbol, her terrifying burden, was now exposed. The repercussions of this revelation were an unknown horror, but the impending doom was palpable. Almost instantaneously, Claire felt a chill grip her heart, her breaths coming out in ragged gasps. Panic surged within her like a tidal wave as her body convulsed in an involuntary reaction to the symbol's exposure. She slumped over her desk, her life extinguished as swiftly as a snuffed-out candle. Hannah's confusion grew into a fear that mirrored Claire's own. She rushed to her sister, finding Claire cold and unresponsive. Her worst fears were confirmed in the most horrific way. Her mind raced back to the old man's death, the eerie similarities impossible to ignore. The frantic call to 911, the arrival of the paramedics, the whispered guesses of heart failure. It was all hauntingly familiar. In the aftermath of the chaos, Hannah sat alone in her sister's room, her mind a whirlwind of emotions. The amulet was still there, innocuous in the daylight, yet casting a shadow far darker than any she had ever known. With trembling hands, she picked it up, studying the symbol that had seemingly taken her sister's life. Hannah felt a rush of cold terror, the reality of Claire's warnings sinking in. The symbol was not a mere artifact, but a deathly mark, one that had claimed 2 lives in their wake. As Hannah looked around her sister's room, a profound sense of loss washed over her. She saw Claire's favorite books stacked haphazardly on the shelf, the headphones she'd always used to drown out the world, the dream catcher she'd hung above her bed for good luck, reminders of a life snuffed out too soon. Grief was soon replaced by anger, an anger that was deep and visceral, that bubbled from within her and ignited a flame of determination. Her sister had carried the burden alone, but she wouldn't. Claire's death wouldn't be in vain. Hannah realized then that she had inherited a terrifying legacy, a burden she hadn't asked for. But if it meant avenging her sister's death, she was ready to fight. She wouldn't let fear rule her. As she held the amulet, Hannah felt an unexpected surge of power. She understood the dire consequences of revealing the symbol, but she also felt an inexplicable connection to it, a connection that gave her hope. It was with renewed purpose that she stepped out of Claire's room, the symbol hidden securely in her pocket. As the sun set, marking the end of a day that had seen her world shatter and reshape, Hannah steeled herself for the challenges that lay ahead. The mark of death had claimed its victims, but it wouldn't claim her. Hannah was no longer just an unbeliever. She was a fighter, ready to take on the supernatural entity that had disrupted their lives. The symbol had marked her, but she would decide what that mark meant. The oppressive silence in the wake of Claire's death left Hannah feeling hollow. The symbol, an ominous mark of death, hung heavily around her neck, its cold presence a constant reminder of her impending doom. Her sister's death had made a believer out of her, but belief offered no shield from the terror that McCool brought. With an urgency born of desperation, Hannah immersed herself in research, combing through old texts and scouring the dark corners of the internet for a solution. But every day the symbol stayed in her possession, she felt herself inching closer to the edge of sanity, McCool's relentless presence pushing her further into darkness. In the throes of her despair, Hannah had a thought. If she couldn't rid herself of the symbol, perhaps she could pass it on. And she knew just the person who deserved it. Olivia. The high school queen bee, who had reveled in tormenting Hannah, now seemed like the perfect candidate. She found Olivia alone in the school courtyard, her posse of followers nowhere to be found. Fear welled up in Hannah as she approached her nemesis, the silver amulet heavy in her hands. "Olivia," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I have something to show you." Surprised, Olivia allowed Hannah to place the amulet in her hands. As soon as the symbol was revealed, Hannah felt an immediate and intense wave of vertigo overcome her. Her vision blurred, and she fell to her knees, gasping for breath. Simultaneously, a look of absolute horror crossed Olivia's face as she gazed at the symbol, the color draining from her face. She tried to drop the amulet, but her hand wouldn't open, as though she was suddenly paralyzed. Hannah fell unconscious next to Olivia, her strength finally giving out under the strain of McCool's curse. Her life ebbed away in the school courtyard under the shadow of the same curse that had taken Claire. As her final breath left her body, Hannah's grip on reality loosened, her consciousness slipping into oblivion. Left alone with Hannah's lifeless body, Olivia was marked next, her eyes fixated on the symbol in her hands, oblivious to the terrifying fate she had just been thrust into. She remained frozen, not fully understanding the events that had transpired, her mind unable to comprehend the horrifying reality. As night fell, the school grounds bore silent witness to the chilling events of the day. In its wake, McCool's symbol had claimed another 2 victims, ready to move on to the next in its relentless cycle of death and fear.